Okay. As long as it is forward. God, send me anywhere. Only go with me. Lay any burden on me. Only sustain me. And sever any tie in my heart except the tie that binds my heart to yours. If you have men who will only come if they know there is a good road, I don't want them. I want men who will come if there is no road at all. I will go anywhere, provided it is forward. David Livingston, 1813 to 1873.
Thank you. Thank you for resetting the tone for the year, which is the theme of irreversibility, eyes to the stars. So moving forward. We have the theme this week of higher carelessness. And this is based on the fact that we have a very philosophical fellow whose birthday is this William Quan Judge. And it is said about him that he, the higher carelessness that W.Q. Judge taught is a calm reliance on the law and a duty of one's duty. And that's in our quotes for this week. And so that idea of higher carelessness is what we're going to give some consideration to today. I'm really so pleased that Dr. Randy Wong, who's been a presenter for us on a number of occasions in the past, has agreed to look at this. And I feel as if it's really appropriate to call it the tradition of philosophical inquiry. We've had several back and forths between he and I, wondering what might be the best way to approach this. And his first idea was really interesting, and it had to do with looking at things from sort of a scientific, spiritual, philosophical, would you say, Randy? And looking into some of the principles of quantum physics. And as we looked at it a little bit, to me, what was showing through was, and what he had chosen was something that really had a lot to do with the ideas of karma. And I thought of this this piece of writing that was also done back in the late 1800s called Aphorisms on Karma. And Randy agreed to take that up for us, and so that's what you received with your invitation, was a copy of that. It's a slightly abbreviated copy. And so we'd like to just have a chance to kind of look at this idea of karma and how that might be related to the idea of higher carelessness. And once again, I just feel very grateful for Randy taking on this topic and just all of us jumping into it. So Randy, let's take it away.
Thank you, Renee. When you first invited me to address this topic, I was looking at those terms, higher carelessness. And what first came to mind was, I don't care, but it's not quite that. I think when you pull it up to a higher spiritual level, the carelessness, I think that the Renée Tillotson or Hermes was writing about was about the fact that you can trust universal law, and this is what is going to take care of us. And karma, in a sense, is a great equalizer or balancer of things in the universe. Now, when I tried to look up higher carelessness in William Judge's writings, and I didn't find it, although there were references to that term. And so when I set about looking at, okay, what can we talk about? I started thinking about you know, and I actually gave Renee an article from, I believe it was the University of Wisconsin. It was a master's thesis on why the third law of attraction causes the failure of people to actually manifest things that they want. And the third law of attraction is the law of allowing. And so I think it tied in a little bit with this term of carelessness, that if you are so focused on making something happen in terms of manifesting a certain result, um, a lot of science has gone behind the reason why it doesn't work and how that actually sabotages your intention. So what and so Renee and I kind of talked a little bit about the aphorisms on karma that William Judge wrote about, and this came out about 3 years before he died. That was what, 1893. He died in 1896. So I'm just going to go through that document a little bit, and I'm not an expert on this in any way. I'm going to actually open it up and like to have kind of a roundtable discussion to get all of you involved in giving your perception and concepts, because karma is kind of a buzzword that people throw around, and commonly the concept is what goes around comes around, and or it's an accounting of good and bad, and that basically if you do bad things, then you're going to get bad things in response. So it's sort of the law of cause and effect in one sense, and very much what you sow you shall reap. And so in the article that Renee circulated, I'm just going to go through some of these things. The first 3 or 4 points talks about how Mr. Judge was defining this term karma. And it's interesting that that first point he lists, where there is no karma unless there is a being to make it or feel its effects. It's sort of like that Buddhist koan. If a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around to hear it, does it really make a sound? It's that sort of thing, that there has to be a witness of an effect, or actually a source to cause the effect. And so that's what I got out of that first point. Anybody have any other ideas or concepts regarding this concept of karma? Don't be shy. Again, I don't want to be I don't want to be talking the whole time.
You know what? Why don't you go ahead and share with us what you've what you've gleaned, and then let's throw it open a little wider. Maybe
Okay.
not everybody's had a chance to look through it. So if you just choose some of those salient things, and then we'll have a better basis for conversation.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I tried looking up William Judge, and he was one of the founders of the Theosophical Society back then. He basically was born in Ireland, was a naturalized U.S. citizen age 21. He then passed the bar exam and became a commercial law attorney. And he also had, I guess, some very intellectual, scholarly activities with regard to the occult and some of the, I would say, metaphysical concepts of the time. As I read through his aphorisms on karma, okay, so he first kind of goes on to describe that it has a cause and effect relationship. And it is an adjustment of effects that leads to pain or pleasure. It's basically restoring equilibrium in the universe. It operates incessantly, and yet its actions are somewhat hidden from view. And who's to say that an effect or an event is a result of karma? Hard to say. However, he does the one. It was actually line number 6, where he says karma is not subject to time, and therefore he who knows what is the ultimate division of time in this universe knows karma. I had to scratch my head on that one. It was a little bit out there. But I think what he was trying to say was that karma, once created, does not go away on its own. It has to be expressed at some point, and time is not a limitation. And so, as he describes this, he talks about the need for karma to express or act through an appropriate instrument, if provided. Again, goes back to that first statement that if there is no appropriate instrument, and I think what came to me is my personal experience in faith healing. I've taken care of several people who have claimed to be faith healers, and they have this calling to heal people. And usually they've come to see me because their skin is falling apart. They have such advanced skin cancers. And when I talk to them about what they do, and they tell me, oh, they have this calling to heal people, they can't stop to help people in that way. I had to step in on some of these patients and say, look, when you heal somebody, the karma that they have accumulated that has caused their suffering, that doesn't go away. So as the healer, you take responsibility for that karma. And so what I was seeing is the healers were actually accumulating this negative karma, and their bodies were falling apart. So I told them, I says, you have to balance out this process. You need to release the negative energy. You need to, the easiest thing is go jump in the ocean, and, the energy of the ocean will take it. Or you have to ground it to the planet and give it back to Earth, or go to a temple and pray and allow higher entities to relieve you of this burden of the negative karma. And they say, yeah, I know, and they know these things, but they just don't take the time to release it, and so then they actually accumulate the suffering. And I used to have a question, well, doctors and nurses, we also like to heal people and help people and so forth. I think what protects me and my fellow physicians is that we don't basically feel that this calling needs to be done without charge. So we do charge fees for our services. And so, when you think of it, somebody who works to earn a living, they have to pay a doctor. That is, in one sense, they're suffering to relieve the karma of whatever ailments that are afflicting them, and so that they balance out that way. So, okay, the other thing that I think Judge wrote about was the mind, the body, and the soul. They each have a power for independent action, and each of these actions have an effect on the karmic causes and effects. And so, I mean, he talks about having sort of the focus of mind to be able to counteract some karmic effects, but in another sense, all it does maybe is hide it or uh, help it to uh, soften an effect, but the full debt of suffering at some point will likely need to be paid. Um, he talks about three types of karma. There is one that let's say you do something bad, and you get caught, you get thrown in jail, or served some punishment for your bad deed. That is the one type that actually is operating in your current lifetime. Uh, there is karma that is stored up. In other words, um, if you are collecting negative energy and uh, you don't address it, it basically can be stored, and it can be stored beyond your lifetime. Uh, the third type is that karma that is held over from past lives or other lives, and this pertains to, I believe, ancestral karma. In other words, if you inherited karma from past generations, that also could be plaguing us, and uh, your suffering may be related to that. Um, Judge does talk about a relationship between karma and ego, and how those are entwined. And in his last sentence, line 28, he does say that egos will continually incarnate into poor surroundings where they experience difficulties and trials. And this is for the discipline of the ego, and eventually results in strength, fortitude, and sympathy. So, um, just an aside, funny story. I attended a conference that was held by Brian Weiss. He's a Yale Dartmouth psychiatrist who had an interesting phenomenon in his practice where he noted relationships of past lifetimes showing up in his waiting room and in people. So he was saying this is in one sense, I think he was describing karma, somebody who basically would disdain the poor or the homeless, and uh, would, when they reincarnated, would come back in a poverty situation so that they could better understand the difficulties of the people that they were um, disdaining in their previous life. So one guy in the audience stood up and he said, "You know what? I really hate those rich and famous people." And Dr. Weiss said, "That doesn't mean you're going to be reborn rich and famous just because you hate them." But that was kind of just a funny aside I thought I'd mention. Okay, I'm going to open it up. What things have come up in your minds as this topic spurred in terms of your interest? And let's let's kind of have an interchange here.
Diana.
Diana.
This is very exciting to me. I loved your talk, and there were 2 points that I felt. One, which I had never thought about. I'm a life coach and marriage family therapist, and the idea of taking on other people's karma. I never thought about that. And I think it's a really valid point. I don't think I heal people. I think I share with them and that they have to heal themselves. But the idea of what's changed so that if we feel like we're healing people and we neglect ourselves and we don't take care of ourselves, then we are giving ourselves away and opening ourselves up to receive other people's karma. And what you said was that as a physician or a therapist or whatever, it's like not taking on someone else's karma and doing a cleansing. I always do cleansing after I see clients, but I felt that that's really important for us to look at, because sometimes, whether it be our children or whether it be those around us, when we take on the responsibility to heal them, or we feel that we have to heal them, we're taking on their karma to make them better. And we can't. They have to make the choice to make themselves better and to work on it. And I think that's I've never heard that before. And I think that to me was really significant. And I thank you for that, because I think that's a really important thing to be aware of when we're working with the public and on all levels, and even within our families. If we feel like we have to fix somebody, then we're taking on their karma. Wow. That's really important.
Yes, very so. I think, what you sow, you shall reap. And if your ego, as Judge puts it, is so bullheaded and strong-willed that you say that, I'm just going to help people because I'm going to gain credit and I just need to help them and do all this stuff. I mean, it's as if somebody needed money and you open up your wallet, you give them money. They are in a better place now, but your wallet is depleted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that has to balance out somehow. And perhaps in the karmic scale, yeah, you may have higher points, but you cannot drain your energy to save someone.
Yeah. I always say, if you give out of an empty heart, you're giving out of a need to fill yourself. If you give out of a heart and you've taken care of yourself and you're filled with love, you can give from a full heart. And that's a different way of giving and letting God work through us, or the divine wisdom. The other point that I was looking at, I'm sorry, I got really excited about this, was the idea of higher carelessness. I looked up careless and I saw two definitions, which I thought was interesting. Failure to give sufficient attention to avoid harm or errors, negligence. If not giving things enough forethought or without anxiety, the confidence springing from a sense of security. And I thought, when we move forward in life, if we trust a higher wisdom and we move forward, we're moving forward, but we really don't know where we're going, even if we think we do. We're going in a way, it takes faith and trust to move forward with a higher carelessness, like you said, to take it to the next level of spiritual understanding. It doesn't mean we're going to be foolish, but it also means there's an idea that if I feel like I'm being guided and I'm really listening and trusting that divine wisdom is guiding me, doesn't mean I'm not anxious, because I do get anxious, but there's not the same anxiety when I'm not trying to figure everything out. Like you said, the intention, if we're not trying to figure everything out to the last minute thing, but we move forward with faith and trust, we're being guided one step at a time to where we're supposed to go. And for me, when I looked at higher carelessness, when it said without anxiety, and I thought, well, when I surrender to divine wisdom and trust that listening, then I am not so anxious, and I have a sense of security that I'm going to be upheld, and I'll know what to do at the next step, even though I may not know what I think I'm supposed to do. It's not trying to figure everything out, because it never really works out the way we think it's going to work out. So
Very
that's
well said.
really exciting. Thank you so much. That was really exciting for me.
No, thank you. I think it's very, very well said. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Carolyn.
Carolyn, you need to unmute.
Lower left corner.
There
There
we
you
There you
go.
go.
Okay. I thought you made many very good points. I have read judges' letters and essays over the years. But you, in trying to explain karma, you ended up referencing past lives and future lives. And he said it was inevitable that you can't explain karma and all the things that happen to people if you don't recognize that you may be working with the accumulation of many lives, and you may incur, particularly if you use very bad means, future karma, which will get stored up and which sometimes seems a little depressing. But you and then people say, well, I kind of believe in karma. You're going to reap what you sow. But this reincarnation, I don't believe in. And Judge, I think it was, that said, if you don't recognize that there is within you layers and layers of an inner life, some closer to physical reality and others very esoteric. If you don't recognize anything but your physical body, then you're not going to believe either in karma or reincarnation. You're going to think, oh, I just heard somebody not that long ago say, no, it's one life. You're dead and you're dead. And so there's little hope until something happens that the person comes to see that they have within them all kinds of potencies, all kinds of really karma. So they need the recommendation is, well, why don't you go and kind of explore yourself a little bit? Or do you really think that you're only a physical body? What about your feelings? What about your dreams? What about your intuitions? What about what you get from certain relationships? So that seems, if you want to avoid becoming a complete materialist, and keep saying, no, there's nothing to me but my body. And poor body, the body doesn't do all the things that you have ideas about or do or whatever feel. So I always thought that was a very strong point he made. You've got to go within and recognize that there's a lot of complexity to you, which is why you don't mercifully see your everything that is your karma. You couldn't cope with that. Most people couldn't cope with that. So it comes in more selective ways, it seems. But that linkage between going within and discovering the fullness of your human qualities and memories, and why in some situations people you wouldn't expect come forth and succeed in a very difficult situation. It just hadn't had the conditions to come out. So anyway, it's kind of long-winded, but it does seem that the other aspects of yourself is what kind of regulates to some extent your capacity to experience karma truly, and to see that even if you're in a miserable situation, you made a miserable mess, there's always hope. If you begin psychologically to prepare yourself for the possibility, you know, you got a lot of lives ahead, and you don't kind of cure something sometimes all at once. You just work on it.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think we are much more complex than one can even imagine. You know, and the human mind tends to compartmentalize things, and so you know, in sort of the physical nut that we are, you know, you have the body, you have the mind, and then when you add spirit or soul, then that actually becomes the self. It's actually more than just the body, as you say, well, Carolyn. Beyond that, you have the other lives, the past lives, future lives, and you know, Judge makes a point to, and what I got out of reading this was he gives a purpose for ego. Okay, I understand ego as the concept of separating self. So you separate self from others and other lives and so forth. But when you can understand, I think, what he's trying to get to in terms of karma, karma transcends all of that, and it encompasses all of that. So there is this connectivity of those separations of mind, body, spirit, present life, past life, future lives, and even generational lives and karma that have been passed down from past generations. And then also an appreciation that the karma that you do not address in this lifetime may be passed down to your descendants as well. So yeah, it's, you know, mind-blowing.
He certainly, but don't get discouraged.
Oh, that's the key. I mean, that's what I got out of, you know, there is a purpose for all of this, and it is to discipline the ego and actually give you strength, fortitude, and teach you about empathy, sympathy, compassion, forgiveness, all of that.
Mhm. Very much so.
Thank you, Carolyn.
You know, I'm not seeing which number it is right now, but he does say in here that karma is merciful as well as just. And he also says, this is near the bottom line 27 or aphorism 27, measures taken by an ego to repress tendency, eliminate defects, and to counteract by setting up different causes will alter the sway of karmic tendency and shorten its influence in accordance with the strength or weakness of efforts expended in carrying out the measures adopted. And so, like you were saying, Carolyn, this makes it so there's always hope. We are not just the victims of our past karma. We're always creating new causes, and so therefore new effects. So those can, sorry about that. You go ahead. Okay.
Anybody else?
I'll go. Thank you, Dr. Wong. What I took away was when you were talking about healers, because even though I'm not a massage therapist and my daughter Malia is, we do have the practice of prayer at the beginning and prayer at the end, because when you work on somebody, there's energy, and energy has to go somewhere. And I'm thinking when in the Bible, when Jesus healed a demoniac that had all the demons in him and he cast them into the pigs, you know, it had to go somewhere. And I honestly believe, yep, prayer is very helpful. Washing, cleansing in the ocean, which we did today, this morning, was beautiful. And self-care is very important. So thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's Newton's law of thermodynamics. You know, energy cannot be created or dissipated. It transforms, and so yes, it has to go somewhere.
Mhm.
And so, you talked at the very beginning, Randy, about kind of this higher carelessness having to do, I think, maybe you used the phrase a reliance on the law, or the fact that we are in a law governed universe. And that makes a lot of sense to me, especially if we can set up countervailing causes. It's not as if it's this evil force out to, you know, do this wrathful justice or something, or even,
Yeah.
yeah, you
Well,
know,
there.
what to do with, it seems like learning, uplifting, and making us into more refined beings that can carry out our duties in the world more effectively, from what we learn from what we've gone through, and the effects that we get back. Oh, that didn't work so well. Oh, that worked a lot better. Maybe I'll go that way next time.
And that is you know, why I kind of gravitated toward that other article about the law of attraction. And yes, you know, much of the discussion about karma is about the bad things that we do and then have to repay, and we do that by being punished or suffering. On the other hand, there are karmic credits that we accumulate by doing good things, and the rewards are also presented to us, you know, as a result of those actions. So yes, it's not just the negative; it's also the positive. And you know, the very beginning, Judge writes about how it's an equilibrium. So if we tend to pull energy uh, into one direction, negative or positive, um, the universe will basically recognize that and actually try and balance out. So if we collect credits, that actually can be used to offset the debits or the negatives. Um, but it's not just simple accounting. You know, it moves in mysterious ways, and it's just difficult to understand. I think that's what William Judge was trying to put down to raise an awareness and an understanding of how the law works. And the carelessness that I think he refers to is, if you understand how law works, you can navigate without having to worry or take precautions. I mean, think of it this way: you buy a new car, okay? It's shiny, it's really spiffy, and you're driving around town. You have to worry about, where am I going to park? If I park too close to another car or a beat up truck, you know, basically I'm going to get a door ding. And there's all this worry, which is sort of you're actually being punished or suffering for having to think about where am I going to park and what bad things could happen to my car. Well, that first door ding, it kind of relieves a lot of that. So, it's like, okay, I got a door ding. It's going to happen. No big deal. That's the carelessness I think he's talking about, is like, why worry? I mean, it's wasted energy, and you need to, preserve your energy for more significant things.
Too, with what one of you were bringing up, maybe it was Diana, about thinking we can heal other people's problems, solve their problems for them, including people who are in our families, for example, and that's not having that higher carelessness. And those of you who have attended GEMS with me when I've mentioned Pema Chodron before, the Tibetan Buddhist nun who was born in America. She says, nothing ever ends until it teaches us what we need to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
So there does need to be, I think, a certain trust in that law working, that yes, somebody we love very much is going through things, and yes, we would love to be able to relieve them of that suffering that they're going through, and we can't, I mean, it would be kind of like stealing an opportunity, wouldn't it, for them to learn from their experience. I mean, that isn't to say that we can, not be of assistance, because that's part of what we need to do. That's part of our dharma, our duty in life. Our role is to be of assistance where we can, and yet we can't. I don't know where. Maybe somebody can clarify things for me at this point, because I think that it's true that we can't take it on for them.
I look at it like somebody's trapped in a current, and you're on the sidelines on the shore saying, swim, come here. And if they have to swim against the current to get to you, that's not helping them. If you tell them, swim in that direction so you can actually, go with the current, but eventually get closer and closer to shore, I'll see you down there, I'll meet you down there. That may be, the best help that you can give them. And there are some people that want to jump in and swim out to them, and they might drown in the process. So yeah, it's a matter of understanding the current and the nature of things, how things are flowing, and you do your best to help those in need, of course, but having a little bit of a wisdom on how to do it is going to make it easier.
Yeah.
Diana, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I know I've mentioned this before, but it's been really helpful for me, Renee, to what you're speaking through. My 3D self is really hurting for that person, and I would love to fix them or help them not have the suffering. My soul and faith, my soul perspective is, this is a journey they need to take. I can walk with them, and yet this is their journey. And like you said, or he said, whoever said, we're learning lessons. It's not that to me, I'm not given something bad so that I can learn a lesson. It's how do I respond? How do I move with what's happening in my life? And I don't think things are given as punishments. I think we learn through that. But there's also my soul perspective of learning to let go and have faith and trust that someone's doing their journey, even though it's totally not what I agree with, or I'm really scared for them because I love them, and yet having to let go and have faith. So my 3D self can be very sad and crying and upset. And then there's this other faith and soul perspective that can say, there is a journey they're going on, taking them out of trying to jump in the water to save them isn't going to help, because then I'll drown too. And so that's how I work with that in my life, because I think both are true.
Unless you are a trained lifeguard, then it is
Oh.
actually your duty to do that, right?
Yeah.
Or you have the skills, if you have the skills. Carolyn?
I think can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, and that point ties in with one we haven't mentioned. Aside from having deep within us a capacity for love, forgiveness, the working of karma, it seems to me, is very tied up, or the working out of karma is very tied up with universal ideas. If we think of our neighbor as, well, they've got brown skin, what do I have to do with them? Or if they were a member of my family, then I would work with extraordinary effort to help them get out of their karma. But if we can focus on what we might call universal ideas of justice, of tolerance, of love, of forgiveness, if we can focus on universal ideas and therefore see every human being as ultimately part of the same family, if you want, that would be that's more likely to make you stronger and to give more hope and faith to the person you're trying to help. So um, we want to cultivate a capacity to see what is universal in our situation and relationships, and not just be, because a lot of times people are broken. Well, my child is in trouble, and they'll go to the school and they want some solution for their child, but they couldn't care less about all the other children. That's not going to make them very effective, it seems to me. And of course, the question is, what are universal ideas, and why do they have so much more potency in the working of the law of karma?
Some of those ideas might be in that last line that I think, Randy, you read aloud about. It could be that the ego has taken on this discipline in order to of going through very, very tough situations, perhaps, in order to gain things like strength and fortitude and sympathy for others. And so we can't even necessarily say that someone is going on a very difficult journey, that they have to work out something from their past. It could be that they're just like jumping up into a whole new level of humanness. They are taking on a really, really rough life circumstance, perhaps, but not because they had to, maybe from the past. Maybe they're just saying, okay, I'm ready for something else, bring it on. And I'm going to be better able to help and teach others. as a result of that. And that's always been very humbling to me to think, oh, how little we really can from the outside think we know somebody else's karma. We could really go pretty far astray. Even when we think we're being sympathetic toward them. Isn't that interesting?
Well, physically, we have, our five senses. And I believe, there are so many things going around that we cannot sense. X-rays and radio frequencies that, we need equipment to decipher. So based on our five senses, which is essentially limited to the body, it is now the role of the mind to imagine and visualize our connection with all the other energies that are floating around. And that includes the relationships of other people that are in relationship with us. And that next layer then becomes, the group or the tribe. And then there's the spiritual envelope around that. And how many more dimensions that are, unimaginable, that are part of these layers that we are part of. And so it's understanding that we are not alone in the universe. We are a part of the big picture.
Brilliantly said.
Well, isn't that what the higher carelessness is all about?
Thank you, Carolyn. I think you got it.
Maybe.
Well, the connectivity leads me back to sort of the Ho'oponopono process that, we understand that there is something within me that has allowed bad things and negative things to occur. So I have to accept responsibility for that, ask for forgiveness, appreciate the opportunity to understand and learn about that, and then express love. Then, then it is not in my hands anymore. It goes out to the universe to take care of it.
I copied, when I checked the word careless, it says how to stop making careless mistakes. And the first was figure out why you made the mistake. And who knows what a mistake is? I think most of some things, the worst things that can happen provide the greatest learning and depth, and they're not a mistake at all. It's exactly where we're supposed to be, in my opinion. But keep track of patterns that we tend to redo, prepare for the task, slow down, stay in the moment, do one thing at a time, and make a checklist. And I thought that was interesting because when we think of higher carelessness, we need to slow down. We need to listen. We need to stay in the moment. And if we do one thing at a time and trust, we're going to be led to the next thing. And after that, because we really don't know what's going to happen to any of us in the next moment. And I when I read that, I thought, well, that's interesting, because when we take it on the spiritual level, exactly what we talk about in spirituality is living in the present moment, do one thing at a time, listen, slow down, look at what happened and learn from it. Because I think that's how we work with our karma.
What do you all think of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote for this whole week of higher carelessness? Let us cultivate a dangerous unselfishness.
Could you read that again, please? Oh, there you had it up.
Let us cultivate a dangerous unselfishness.
Unselfishness. That means taking risk, I guess.
Well, that ties in with the the affirmation for tomorrow. It says, to achieve the impossible, attempt the absurd. So you would have to go beyond what people would expect. And then you can create the miracles.
You
That
talked,
to me is the higher carelessness that we've been talking about. Exactly.
yeah. From from my understanding of reading some of Mr. Judge's other writings, by the way, in regard to this idea of ego and ego, sometimes there's that kind of pronunciation difference that I've heard, that the capital E is talking about like that higher self. And that could, you know, take on that greater risk to create the miracles. And it's the ego, the little e ego, that holds us back from being willing to do that. Oh no, but what happens if I do that? And oh, what happens if I do this? And oh, you know, we get caught in the grips of that little ego. But that higher carelessness, like, yeah, I might get some real kickback from this one, but I bet I learn a lot, and maybe it'll do some good, even if it is a bit fraught.
Well, I'm wanting to echo what Diana said about, faith and trust. And, I would put that with a capital F and a capital T.
Yes. Yeah.
I was just
Because
thinking about,
then,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, and I was just going to add on, then you can be careless, because it's not the ego or ego that has to worry about consequences or the effects. It tosses it up, and the universe then is tasked to take care of it. Go ahead, Diana.
I was thinking with Martin Luther King Jr.'s remark that to make changes in our world, the right to vote, all the things that are happening, if it does take a risk, it's speaking out our truth and be willing to say, I don't want that to happen anymore, or I'm going to vote this way. And it's very difficult because there's such divisiveness, and it's sometimes of taking that risk of marching or doing whatever we need to do to say, this is important. This is really important. And it's like, it is a risk in our society. And even more so today for people that are speaking out, they're being shunned and so it's like, really, how do we take that higher consciousness risk? And we have to listen. To me, we have to listen that we each do it on our way. I don't necessarily go out and pick it, but I pray a lot and I meditate and I work with it on that level. But it's like, then sometimes we have to speak out, because we can't just sit. Doing nothing is not changing it either. If we all remain silent and don't take an active participation to change something, it may not change, and it could get a lot worse.
Randy, did you feel at all as if you were taking a little risk and taking on such a big topic?
As I mentioned to you, I'm just the facilitator, I am not the expert here. And I ended up doing much more talking than I had anticipated anyway.
To all of our benefit. Yeah. Let me tell you about what we have coming up, and then perhaps someone will like to give a vote of thanks to Randy Wong, Dr. Randy Wong, and our theme for next week, moving from this idea of higher carelessness. And there was a interesting line about the divisions of time, knowing the divisions of time, that I agree is very mysterious. And our topic for next week is eternity and time. And we're going to be looking at that from some Hindu and Buddhist perspectives. And Kirk Gradine, someone who's given us some wonderful presentations in the past, is going to do that. The following week will be the meaning of Easter. I can't tell you who's going to be doing that, but we have a lot of things coming up. I believe that in April, the topic of Prince Rama is going to be taken on by the person who played Prince Rama in our most recent Diwali performance. Sri Hanuman is going to be taken up by the UH professor Ram Das Lam. And later there's going to be one on Princess Sita, and the person who played Princess Sita is going to be taking up that topic as well. So we have a lot of wonderful things to look forward to in the future of GEMS. With eternity and time. And I think that that will be a really interesting and relevant follow-up to this whole conversation of karma. Is there somebody who feels up to giving a vote of thanks to our presenter for today?
I can give a vote of thanks. I thought this was a great topic. It really sparked me, as you could tell. I really felt that there was so many really important things that were being said, especially in our day and age right now and all that's going on. And it was really helpful. And I love the way it was presented and all the back and forth. And thank you, Dr. Wan. It was really, really, really helpful for me. And I appreciated it a lot.
I appreciate that, your kind words, Diane. Thank you.
Inspired good conversation, and I think you managed to do a lot of bringing it into everyday relevance to us, so it just didn't stay a highfalutin philosophical, but just like this philosophical inquiry idea was like, how do we actually see this and apply this in our lives? And I think you did a really good job of weaving those two together. So thank you so much. And just bringing your kind of, I think the scientific mind of yours as a doctor, you know, you're very questioning. And I feel that that is such a forward propelling way of living our lives. Is to always be questioning and asking and asking and asking. So you helped us to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank
Love-
you.
We'll see you
Thank
next week.
you, Dr. Wan. That was great. I'm not very familiar with this topic, so it was very good to hear your insight and all the different perspectives on it. So thank you for educating me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Yes, mahalo. Have a great weekend. Aloha.
Aloha.
Joan, nice to have you, and as well, Sharon. Thank you again, Randy.